Hello, and a very good morning to you here on LCBN TV. My name is Chris Wickland, and you are watching UK in Focus. And this program is being broadcast to you on pretty much most media platforms, and it's also going out on my own YouTube channel. So, a very good morning to you all. As ever, it's been a very interesting week, isn't it, in the news? And the purpose of this show is to try to look at what's going on in our nation, but put a prophetic lens to it. So, it's important that we understand, like the sons of Issachar, that we understand the signs of the times in which we're in so that we can respond and react accordingly. Excuse me. Now, some people say, oh, but Chris, we're right in the end of days. This is it. We're in the tribulation period and all this kind of stuff. But the thing is, you still, that I don't personally believe we're there yet, but we're getting there. But nevertheless, you still think it's important that we have a prophetic world lens view into the now of where we're at. And so that's really the purpose of this show, really. So today, we're going to look at a few things based on the fact that we are now living in a post-free speech era, really, which is very sad. And it has to be said that these are the times in which we're living. So I mean, for example, I cannot say personally at this time, but I can't go into the details, but I'm coming under fire for what I've been saying on social media. And I know of other Christian ministers personally who have all come under fire and been really badly punished for having a Christian narrative on social media, which contradicts the liberal, politically correct narrative of our politics today. Now, if anyone out there in Christendom thinks that Britain, it's a bastion of freedom of speech, I'm afraid you need to think again. In fact, I would actually have to speak to Christians and say, with respect, you need to wake up. There is a war going on out there, and certain powers that be are using lawfare against Christians and others who are speaking out against the woke, politically correct nonsense that has ensnared Britain. And some of these powers that be are being brutal about it. In fact, I would like to do an expose on some of these powers that be, how that they are victimizing Christians for some of the things that they've been saying on social media. There is a lot of evidence to prove this, and not just Christians, but other people who are speaking against the political left. And I think it's important that we hold these quangos to account. Now, as I said, there really is no freedom of speech in this nation anymore. We're now in a post-free speech era, and we are now in an Orwellian society that you are allowed to say and think what you like, but as long as it's what the state says you can think and say. Christians need to wake up. Some of you guys really are asleep, and it kind of isn't funny. See, the only reason why some believe that this nation has free speech is because, with respect, you have probably either not spoken out against the cultural narrative or haven't yet been spotted for speaking out against the liberal cultural narrative. And this segues nicely into the news story this week that was in the news about Lucy Connolly. Her case has been given higher and higher profile, although Keir Starmer says that he's not aware of this case. But Donald Trump has revived his explosive free speech row with Keir Starmer with a decision to monitor the case of Lucy Connolly, the woman jailed for an online rant about migrants on the day of the Southport attacks. Also needs to be noted that Donald Trump has sent people to this country to check up on our freedoms of speech. And they interviewed people like Adam Connor Smith. Sorry if I keep getting his name around the wrong way. Adam Connor Smith. Anyway, yeah, so he got interviewed. Various other people got interviewed. And why were they doing this? So that they could see firsthand. Is there freedom of thought in this country? Is there the right to pray wherever you want? Is there the right to speak? The answer is no. Even though Keir Starmer said on a White House press conference, oh, no, I take great pride in our freedom of speech. No, freedom of speech is now dead. You are living in a post-free speech era. I know this personally. I have powers that be coming after me, and I know many other people have powers that be that they've come under those people, and they've been brutally marginalized and punished for the things that they have said. The U.S. State Department said that it was concerned about infringements on freedom of expression. The 42-year-old Lucy Connolly, the wife of a former Conservative councillor, told her 9,000 followers on X mass deportation now, set fire to all the hotels and full of the, for all I care, while you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. So that was not me saying that. That was the X comment that Lucy Connolly put out. It was viewed 310,000 times in 3.5 hours before Connolly deleted it. On Tuesday, Lord Justice Holroyd, Mr. Justice Goss, and Mr. Justice Sheldon refused her application to appeal. In a written judgment, Lord Justice Holroyd said, "There is no arguable basis on which it could be said that the sentence imposed by the judge was manifestly excessive." And it is. And let's not forget all of those people that after the Southport riots were immediately, within 48 hours, fast-tracked through, thrown into prison. And we have people like Peter Lynch who died in prison for these very just by saying seemingly hurty words. Now, I appreciate her words we would deem as excessive, but nevertheless, and I think what we're seeing in our legal system, they're coming hard. They're coming very, very hard on people with a center right opinion. To shut you up and to silence you and to make you afraid that you will not do it. They're making an example out of some so that they can silence the many. So the application for leave to appeal against the sentence therefore fails and has been refused. During a hearing last Thursday at the Court of Appeal, she said that she never intended to incite violence and did not realize pleading guilty would mean she had accepted what she had said. When asked why she had deleted the post 3.5 hours after posting it, Connolly added, "I calmed myself down, and I know that wasn't an acceptable thing to say. It wasn't the right thing to say. It wasn't what I wanted to happen." Anti-immigration riots broke out across the country with mosques, homes, and businesses targeted. Over 1,200 people were arrested, while over 130 police officers were injured between the 30th of July and the 5th of August 2024. Whilst I'd like to insert the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandal continues to go on in the background with nothing being done about it. Anyway, so just carrying on with this story, Connolly said that the decision by the Court of Appeal to dismiss his wife Lucy's appeal was shocking and unfair. He said 284 days of separation have been very hard, particularly on our 12-year-old daughter. Lucy posted one nasty tweet when she was upset and angry about 3 little girls who were brutally murdered in Southport. She realized the tweet was wrong and deleted it within 4 hours. And that did not mean Lucy was a far-right thug, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer claimed. He said, "My wife Lucy is a good person, not a racist. As a childminder, she took care of small children of African and Asian heritage. They loved Lucy as she loved them. My wife has paid a very high price for making a mistake. And today the court has shown her no mercy. Lucy got more time in jail for one tweet than some pedophiles and domestic abusers get." Let's say that again. Lucy has been given more time in jail for one tweet than some pedophiles and domestic abusers get. And I think the system wanted to make an example of her so other people would be scared to say things about immigration. This is not the British way. A spokesman for the US State Department told The Telegraph, which first reported its interest, "We can confirm that we are monitoring this matter. The United States supports freedom of expression at home and abroad and remains concerned about infringements of freedom of expression. Mr. Trump has sent US officials to meet British pro-life activists over censorship worries," the paper also reported. Suella Braverman, the former Tory Home Secretary, said Lucy Connolly is effectively a political prisoner and should be freed immediately. She made an ill-judged tweet, soon deleted, that the US investigating this case is a sad indictment of the dire state of free speech under Labour. This comes just weeks after Sir Keir Starmer, being at the White House and appeared to reset this special relationship with a new trade deal. And the row between the two governments erupted during the summer riots that followed the Southport attack, when Trump ally Elon Musk, he launched a vitriolic social media campaign against Sir Keir and his government as people were arrested over tweets. The Labour leader clashed with JD Vance live on television in the Oval Office. Great, that was interesting theatre. As the vice president claimed that free speech was being undermined in Britain and claimed that the UK's online safety laws were an attack on US tech giants. And more recently, the trial of Isabel Bourne-Spruce for silently praying outside an abortion clinic has become a major talking point in the US. And Mr. Vance has criticized the UK legal system over the case. And let's not also forget my good friend, Adam Smith Connor, got his name right that time, who is also going through the courts because he prayed silently in his head at an abortion clinic. This story was also picked up by JD Vance in his speech at Munich a little while back. So with respect, this nation is now a post-era freedom of speech nation. We don't have freedom of speech anymore. As I said, I and others have gotten in trouble. I seem to be under the microscope at the moment for things that I have said. This is just madness. You know, I'm not a far right thug. I'm center right in my, I guess, in my politics. But that aside, as a Christian and as standing up for the Christian faith, I stand very much what I would call on old school conservative. And everything in the media, mainstream media, politics, have basically moved to a ultra far left. It is a cultural Marxist culture that we now live in, and consequently, anyone right of Stalin is now considered a far right thug. And basically, we are seeing lawfare and the weaponization of the left against anyone that questions their rhetoric. And a good example of this is the what would you call him, a media reporter, Tommy Robinson. So another key event which happened this week was the release of Tommy Robinson after 7 months in prison in solitary confinement, okay, for a civil offense. It's clear that he too was basically a political prisoner of the state. Now, as far as I'm aware of, I believe the maximum amount of time that you're allowed to stay into solitary confinement is a maximum of 42 days. Tommy Robinson was in solitary confinement for 6 months. That's basically torture, highly inappropriate and possibly illegal. The fact that our government allows it, the fact that this just goes on, irrespective of what your thoughts are on Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or you don't like him, no one should be put into solitary confinement for that amount of time. And people say, oh, well, it was because he was in a high, a very dangerous prison, and therefore he was put in solitary for his own protection. Well, the guy committed a civil offense. He shouldn't have even been in that kind of prison, let alone solitary confinement for all of that time. It just shows that we have a two-tier justice system, that Lucy Connolly can be put into prison for longer than a paedophile. And it's speaking volumes to the people of Great Britain. They are seeing this. They're saying, okay, if you do hurty words on X, you'll have the book thrown at you. But if you're a paedophile, you will not have the book thrown at you. That's the times in which we're living in. And that's why, as Christians, we need to be getting on our knees and praying that this rape, the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandal, is exposed. We need to pray that the secrets of our government will be exposed. We need to pray that true justice is done in this land and in this nation. We need to pray and intercede like we've never done before, because our prayers will bring those lies and expose them to the light. Because I think when people see just how dark and how deep this rabbit hole goes, I think this nation will be utterly, utterly abhorred by just how repugnant and evil and dark things have really gotten in this nation. But we all live in a world of normality bias where we don't want to pretend that those things are bad, but things are really bad. Now, I'm going to play a video showing Tommy Robinson's release that came earlier this week. And I'm showing this not because, whether you like the guy or not, I'm showing this because it's important that you understand certain truths which our government and the powers that be do not want people to discuss or talk about.
Unfortunately, in a country that doesn't believe in free speech, being a citizen journalist, this place is an occupational hazard. It's ridiculous. 16 years ago, when I first started speaking out against Islamic rape gangs that were plaguing this country, from that point on, I faced relentless attacks from the British state, wielding lawfare as a weapon in order to silence me. I have never been convicted by a jury. Every one of my convictions have been handed down to me by judges. The lucky thing with this, everyone got to see the film. I have to say thank you to Elon Musk, because without X, if we didn't have X, everyone would just think I lied. No one would have got any other narrative. Fortunately, I think, what was it, 167 million people saw the truth. So that gagging order, these attempts at censorship, to silence, to cancel people, it hasn't worked. You've attempted to lock up the truth, and that truth has been echoed around the entire globe. It couldn't have been any more successful. I knew exactly what I was doing when I released that film. I knew I'd end up in there, and I also knew they'd give them every opportunity to pull every trick they wanted to, from messing with visits, to messing with phone calls, to messing with food. I knew that. I made the decision to release that film because the British public deserved to see the truth. For too long, since the start of my activism in 2009, police raids, court cases, I actually thought when I walked out of here this time, it would be the first time since 2009 that I haven't been awaiting trial or prison. And bang, I'm awaiting trial and prison on multiple cases again now. But I've watched from the start of my activism, first of all, I saw Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders was targeted with hate speech laws and prosecutions. I've looked in America. This is the playbook that's played out across the entire globe. If we look in America, look what they've done to Steve Bannon. Look what they've done to Alex Jones, £1 billion. Donald Trump would face the rest of his life in prison if he did not win that election. Look now recently with Marie Le Pen. They've stopped their standing. Look at Katie Hopkins in our country. They took her home. They took her family home. Lawfare has been waged against anyone who has challenged the globalist narratives, challenged open border, challenged mass immigration, even challenged vaccines, any of it. They come at you from every angle. That's what I've experienced. But fortunately, if Elon Musk did not purchase X, I don't think that people understand the importance of it. If he didn't, you'd have been lied to about this entire case. If you go on my Wikipedia page and read all my previous convictions, this would have been another one where they'd have told you I lied. That again, what did you see? If you're one of the people that watched that film, you might not have believed me before. You may have hated me based on a narrative spoon-fed to you by a media who want to tell you who we are. They want to tell you how to think. And I knew in that documentary, that painted a far bigger story than me. That was a story of any whistleblower, anyone. You've seen in my film how they silence people, NDAs, bullying, intimidation, scare tactics, and even attempts at prison. But one positive, even General Flynn, look what they've done to General Flynn in the United States. Everyone has faced it, but I'd like to take a positive rather than continue negatives. What is the positive? Did their gagging order work? Did it work? 167 million people saw that film. Do you know the moment I had in the first week of January? Because this could have gone the other way. That I could have released that film. They could have managed to censor it, which they did off all other platforms. There's only X and Rumble. They're the only ones that they're not able to control. If Elon hadn't have bought it, no one would have seen that film. Everyone had been lied to. But instead, 167 million people saw the truth. You saw how they weaponized the judiciary. You saw the corruption, the blatant evidence of the corruption that no media and no journalists have spoke about. And then the Attorney General made it clear I was going to face continued prosecutions. I would have had indefinite prison sentences for a film as a journalist. But the best moment for me when I was in there was when I heard that Elon Musk had shared the Rape of Britain documentary. The Rape of Britain documentary series is the most important work I've done. They have attempted, before my activism in 2009, they'd successfully, for decades, covered it up. Who had covered it up? Politicians, police forces. In every constituency where those gangs had raped, they'd successfully managed to cover up. Now, the truth is out there. There is no amount of lawfare that can keep it hidden. Everyone knows what's happened.
If you remember, Tommy, the last time I saw you was on the 6th of January when I visited this prison. And on that day, I was with someone else. I was with, and if you remember, Elon Musk had chucked Nigel Farage under the bus, and you were so elated and you were happy. And at that time, you was in segregation. Since then, people have moved into the same unit you were in. How has that affected you?
So I haven't seen anyone who's moved into that unit. So when I come into this prison, there was they gave me 40 cells. So we keep hearing about prisons being full. When I landed, I had 16 cells, and then I was taken to, do you know what I've done? I've had the best opportunity. I've had 7 months of interviewing staff.
Yeah.
I've been on the separation centre. That's where I was having my days. When you come and visited me, it was the first week of January, right?
That's right.
I was elated because I knew that this had been successful, that the public had seen the truth, that they could be lied to no more, that more people around the entire world were talking about the rape of a generation of our daughters, which has been facilitated and accommodated by our government. So, yeah, I'm just...
On the 5th of June, you will be appearing in Westminster Magistrates Court charged with an offence. And what do you have to say to all of those people who will be coming down on the day to support you?
You saw how they politicised the courts and the judiciary against me, but what you saw last summer was Keir Starmer, and it's now been proven as lies. When the riot started, Keir Starmer came out and said it was the far right, it was the English Defence League. That's what the police and the government had said. Now, we now know it's proven there was no far right, there was no English Defence League. The English Defence League ended a decade before it. But what the bigger picture is that the mainstream media act as a weapon of our state. So when Keir Starmer said that, journalists from the Daily Mail travelled to my family holiday, where I was with 3 or 4 other innocent families enjoying a break. They photographed my family. They ran a headline saying, instigating riots from his sunbed. Now, everyone knows I didn't instigate riots. There's no truth in that. But as the government was spreading one lie, the media stepped in to push that lie to the whole world. 10 million views that had. When that article went out, they photographed my children. They photographed my ex-wife. My family have death threats and serious threats of harm against them. They gave the location of where they were. That's not journalism. It's harassment, it's persecution, and they put a target on my family's back. And at that time, when they were blaming the far right, everyone saw how the courts were weaponized over a 48-hour period, where angry British citizens, justified anger, because £15 billion has been spent housing men who have invaded this nation. Many of them have left those hotels to rape, commit terrorism, sexually assault. So the public are angry, the public are frustrated at what's happening in their country. They weaponise the courts. They locked up grandmas, granddads, mothers. These buildings are full of violent criminals. Lucy Connolly's not a violent criminal. Lucy Connolly made a statement. She was angry. She deleted it and apologised. She got 3 years. If you watched my film, you saw Antifa extremists come to my family's home, threaten to murder them. They don't get arrested. They politicised the courts. They politicised the judiciary. That was to scare you, to scare the public into it, and to intimidate them into silence. That was the purpose. That was their goal. That's what their goal was. Have they been successful in doing that? I want to talk about the United Kingdom on the 13th of September. I've come out of here. There is a war being waged on Britain, and it's being waged by our leaders, and it's a war against free speech. Our weapon is free speech. They can't allow it, because if everyone can exercise their free speech, if we have platforms for free speech, we can highlight their abuses, we can highlight their corruption. On the 13th of September, we started organising United Kingdom rallies. I think the last one had over 100,000 people. We want to hold a free speech festival in London as a show of defiance. And at this free speech festival, it's going to be United Kingdom /MAGA/Mega. United Kingdom, because people, and I'm sorry in Scotland, I'm sorry Wales, I'm sorry Northern Ireland, it's going to be in our capital city again. It has to be. People coming from every corner of the globe, speakers from Australia, from Canada, from America, from Denmark, from Germany, from Holland, from Poland. We're not just United Kingdom, we're uniting the world. And London is going to be the centre. It's going to be a festival of free speech. It's going to be a day of celebration to celebrate our weapon and to celebrate what they hate most, which is free speech. So if I can do 7 months in there, you can do a day in London, 13th of September. Book your travel, book your hotel, bring your families, bring your smiles, bring your flags. If anyone has been to the last ones, they're amazing days out. They're brilliant. So get yourself there. That's my message. Is that.
And my final question,
and
Tom,
those journalists, where you was on those journalists,
that's right.
They come, they follow my family, they put a target on their back, they dock location. So then I challenged them. I just couldn't. All my tweets are there. I said, I'm going to come and find you and I'm going to question you. Yeah, I'm going to come. I said, I'm going to come knock on your door. If they wouldn't answer the phone, I'm going to come and knock on your door. So if you followed my story in the last 18 months, just in the last 18 months, I went into London to attend an anti-Semitism rally, and I was targeted by the police as a journalist. I was violently attacked. I was pepper sprayed at point blank range. Then I was arrested. I was charged. For 6 months, I was banned from my capital city. It cost £40,000. We won the case. The judge found that everything they'd done was unlawful. No one gets punished on their side. I had 6 months not allowed into my capital city. I didn't get the £40,000 back. We didn't get any of the money back. We had that. Now, I've just had an 18-month prison sentence for making a documentary as a journalist. 18 months in prison. Counter-terrorism. Counter-terrorism detained me the day after a £100,000 celebration. I was detained under counter-terrorism legislation, where they told me, we don't suspect you of any crime. We know you're not a terrorist, but we want access to your mobile phone. I refused to give them access to my mobile phone because as a journalist, where I believe in free press and a free country and free speech, I don't believe the state had the right to intrude on who my source of information are. So I was charged and prosecuted with counter-terrorism. Now, the reason I have such a target on my back all comes back to the rape gang scandal. Who's the head of counter-terrorism? I think his name's Dukes. He was the same police officer who was in charge of the Rotherham scandal from 2006 to 2010. He was in charge of allowing Muslim men to rape their way through that town, raping all those girls. He's got dirty hands. So now he's in charge of counter-terrorism. So counter-terrorism legislation is used to prosecute me. I'm back on trial on the 13th of October facing prison for not giving them access to my phone. And now, on the 5th of June, I have to go to court, which they come in last week, the Metropolitan Police Force again, because I said I'm going to question some Daily Mail journalists. The Daily Mail journalists that lied saying I instigated riots, that gave the location of my family and showed the images of my family. For daring to say I want to question you, I now face a 10-year prison sentence for that. And Keir Starmer has the audacity to sit in the Oval Office and talk about free speech and lie about free speech to J.D. Vance and President Trump. There is no free speech. The best thing about this is everyone in every corner of the globe knows Britain is a total embarrassment. They are traitors to our forefathers who sacrificed everything for freedom, and they're taking it away, not from me. This isn't about silencing me. Every part of this is about stopping you. It's about censoring you. They don't want you to see the truth. They want to control you. They want to tell you how to think about me, how to think about everyone, everything. And what we saw with the United Kingdom rally, as people were massed in their 100,000, and what you've seen with the recent election, is the public are awake. And the mass awakening has happened. It continues to happen. The more they target us, and to the establishment or the people making these decisions with these court cases, it's stressful, but you've given me another opportunity. When you come to me for this film, it had 200,000 views. It's now on 167 million. You're going to awaken more people, because all I'm going to do is piece together what you've done, your lies, the attacks that the media have done, and the public are going to see it. So even if you send me to jail again, you don't control every social media anymore. You don't no longer have the monopoly. You used to attack us like this, and no one would be able to see the truth. No one would be able to watch these videos. Instead, now people are going to be able to see it. People can watch it. Again, I'm looking forward to September the 13th. I'm looking forward to getting back to my family. They know, I said, like, they know what locking someone up. I spent the entirety of that sentence on solitary confinement, against the advice of the medical teams in that prison, against the advice of independent medical teams that come in, against all of it. Do you know who's not on solitary confinement? Axel Rudikabana, not spent one day on solitary confinement. Salman Abdi's brother. Do you know when that attack happened in Frankland? There were 7 of them. Anjem Chowdhury was one of them, Salman Abdi, and 5 other jihadists. 3 officers. They chased the woman around the pool table, stabbing her, while shouting Allah Akbar. They then got moved from Frankland and put in here. They have the run. If you could see what's going on inside these prisons, it's terrifying. They control every prison in the country. The government don't know what to do. Do you know, I said thank yous. I thanked Elon Musk. I want to make sure there's so many people I need to personally thank. I want to thank the Petersons. I want to thank Tammy, who travelled to this jail but wasn't allowed in at the same time that they were cancelling all my visits. I've got so many personal thank yous to give out. I'll miss people and I'll forget people. Ezra Levant, I'm going to go see him now. Yeah. Ezra has continuously had my back. I think everyone needs a friend like Ezra from Rebel Media. He's continually helped me. He's helped my family and been in contact. Do you know they cut any contact with Ezra? I wasn't allowed any contact with him in there because they probably knew that he was the one man that could have helped. And I believe I'd have been out of jail if I'd had direct contact with Ezra Levant.
Clearly a very upset and angry man for basically showing a film. And I'm sure lots of people have watched some of those films that Tommy has put out. And, well, they're very revealing on the grim, dark state of our nation, especially in respect to the Muslim Pakistani rape gangs. It's something that no one wants to talk about. It's very politically incorrect, but that we can't sacrifice all of those girls on the altar of political correctness. The reality is, I personally think this goes into the heart of politics, into our police, into local councils. I think there is things that are going on in our nation which are demonic, that are satanic, and this thing runs right to the heart of it. And it needs to be exposed. And we need to be praying for this nation, and we need to be praying that God will expose this. Man, if there's one thing that we could pray that would change this nation and turn things around, is expose this, because I personally believe that when this comes out, and I believe it will, but our prayers will determine the quickness of it coming out, that when it comes out, it will cause such national shame that it will cause a nation to come to repentance. I absolutely believe that. And that's when we will start to see a massive revival over this nation, because people will move away from the left and want nothing to do with it, because it'll be utterly repugnant to them that the left condones and stands for this kind of stuff. Now, another rumor that came out this week, and I have it on good authority as well, that it's possibly true, that Tommy Robinson may have given his life to Jesus whilst he was in prison. And so, Christians, what are you going to do if the rumors are true that Tommy Robinson is now saved? How are you going to respond to that? Because God is doing something, I believe, very unique in this nation at this moment, and we are only just seeing the very beginnings of it. The shaking has begun, and God is going to expose the darkness, but with that, he will also expose our own hearts. I personally think many Christians are not going to understand what God is doing in our nation, and many at this moment in time do not understand what God's doing in our nation. And some may even find themselves resisting God's plans and purposes for the United Kingdom, because I believe God is going to expose the filth. He's going to expose this evil, and he's going to expose the depravity of this nation, especially in our political system, in our police forces, and in the councils. So much so that I believe, like I keep saying, it will cause a national shock against the woke hard left. I believe it will be a catalyst that will cause many to turn to truth, righteousness, integrity, to Christ himself. Because God will use the Gideons. God is going to use the malcontents. God is going to use the politically incorrect to bring about national revival to Christianity. I absolutely believe this. Now, yes, God is going to work through mainstream church, because he will work through all things. But you see, there's a whole chunk of society, and I'm not talking about hard, extreme far right, because that is such a minute minority, although Keir Starmer thinks everybody is far right that doesn't agree with what he thinks. But this is not about far right and far left. This is about what God wants to do to this nation. And there are a lot of people who are center right, who have been completely disenfranchised by the political system and disenfranchised by, well, pretty much everything. Politically, you have a prime minister that's not interested in anyone who's centrist at all in their politics. Everything has moved so far to the left that if you are center right, you are now deemed a far right thug. And that's the reality of the situation. But there are a lot of people who are very concerned about this nation. And if people like Tommy Robinson do genuinely get saved, he will appeal to a massive swathe of people who are not far right thugs, but are center right in their ideology and their politics, I guess. And it will bring a massive change to this nation, and many people will come to Christ, and it will be of that ilk that will come to Christ. However, I also see that many Christians will despise and resist what I believe God is going to do at this hour by moving through those people. Why? Because we have many Christians today where their personal reputation is of far higher value than potentially being called far right, though through weaponized name calling. I have churches in my own area that think that I am far right, but I'm not. I have never changed in my theological understanding of the things of this nation. I have always remained consistent. 20 years ago, I would have just been like just boring Chris, conservative. But people have moved, and the church have moved so far to the left that people like me who sit now in the center right, we're now deemed far right thugs. It's not that we're far right, it's they're so extreme to the left that they are name calling us and weaponizing their liberal ideologies to put us to shame, to shut us up so that we don't speak against the political correct narrative of the hour in which we're in. And so there's a question that we need to be asking ourselves as Christians at this time. If people like Tommy Robinson get saved, how are we as Christians going to respond? Are we going to are we going to ride the wave of this new revival that's coming? Or are we going to stand idly by, point and wag our fingers in disapproval and let the mainstream Christians mop up what they will get, whilst this huge resurgence and this huge movement takes place in our nation, which for the most part, many Christians will turn their backs and go, I don't want anything to do with this because that person's associated with it. The movement has started. The revival is now beginning. Be very careful which side you stand on this issue, for you're either for God or against him. And I believe that as Christians, as a nation, that we are now at a fundamental turning point. I believe a line is soon to be crossed, and one which we cannot come back from. I believe we will soon see trouble exploding on our streets in our nation, and this will not be good. This is not what anybody wants. But we are in a nation that it's like a powder keg that's about to explode. When you have a prime minister that completely ignores Brexit, when you have the political class that completely ignore the greatest voter turnout in modern days to basically say, we want out of Brexit, we want out of all of their controls, including the ECHR, and then you have Starmer that wants to renegotiate and reset those boundaries and reset those deals. It is a betrayal, and it is a massive disconnect. Now, when we see any nation throughout history and currently, when the rulers of those nations politically create this big disconnect between what the people say and what they do, it is basically the beginnings of tyranny. And I believe now in this nation, we're probably, if there's like 10 steps to tyranny, we're probably about 2 or 3 steps in now, because now you have various quangos policing what we're saying now on the internet. I'm now being under fire for things that I am saying on the internet. I know lots of other really good Christians who are under fire for things that they have said. These are good Christians. They're not saying anything extreme. They're not being right-wing bigots. They're just calling things out. But you can't call things out because we are now in the beginnings of tyranny, and it will not be stomached, and they will not tolerate it. And so these are the days in which we're living in. And our politics are now rife with cultural Marxism. We have this massive betrayal and disconnect between the political class and what's going on in the streets, where the political class are ignoring what people voted for, what people want, and just pushing through their globalist agenda. We have politicians who have completely betrayed the British people. And never has there been a time in modern history when British people feel so angry, betrayed, and invalid as people. And we're seeing at the ballot box how that's shifting things when we saw the massive resurgence of reform. Labour's days are nearly done. I personally believe that once Labour they'll either get kicked out, or they will step down or try to trigger a general election or something. But whatever happens, when Labour go, I personally don't believe they will get back in for at least a generation, because people will be we do not want that. That is so repugnant. And the things that they did and the things that they covered up and the things that will be exposed, people will be so shocked and horrified at the far left or what they've done to this nation and how truth has been sacrificed, it all in the lines of modernity and political correctness, so that their lies and their subterfuge can rule over this nation. We are now 3 steps into tyranny. So you have the political class that have moved away from the vote of the common people and are ignoring it and are trying to reset the boundaries of Europe. Step 2, they're now doing away with your personal freedom. Step 3, they're now making political prisoners and arresting people for hurty words on Facebook and on X. You know, we're living in days where many pull down statues and whitewash the past with a politically correct veneer. And national identity is being torn down to be replaced with an Orwellian state of thought control and language control. You can't say this, you can't say that. We have many who want to erase Christianity from Britain's history and cause us to be reverts, thus causing a spiritual power vacuum, which will inevitably sucking another faith into its place. And the BBC and various other media formats are now using this term reverts, basically saying we're going back to the original faith of this nation, which, well, I'll let you look what the term revert looks like when you Google it. Britain's historical identity in the past has come from a rich Judeo-Christian heritage, of which we're now living off the remaining fumes. Many people are waking up to the fact that something is seriously wrong in Great Britain. Christianity, after the fall of Rome, is what founded Britain and gave her her identity, an identity which is now almost gone. We're lost in a sea of cultural flux. And if we don't go back to our ancient past, which is Christianity, Britain as we once knew her will be gone forever. Even our state church has fallen to the lies of liberalism, Marxism, environmentalism, woke ideologies, forsaking the Bible and the glorious gospel, which is supposed to set sinners free. So what are we to do? Well, I passionately believe that we need to go back to the foundations and rebuild. But it will take brave souls to undertake this task. To do so means you'll be insulted, slurred, persecuted, even put into prison by the far left. Oh, and even possibly by the real far right. Only Christ and his gospel can save this nation. For that is what made this nation. And to save the future, we need to go back to the past. Brothers and sisters, if there's ever a time that we need to be on our knees interceding for this nation, we have to do it. And so this is why, if I may, Daniel chapter 9 is really pertinent at this time. If I could just get comfy here and read the first 3 verses of Daniel chapter 9. And it says, I'm in this really squashed room. I can't even cross my legs. All right. It might look like I'm in this really nice big TV studio, but I'm literally, this is like a tiny corner of the back end of my prayer room. And I'm like, it's really tight in here. Okay, the magic of TV, amen. It said, in the 3rd year, this is Daniel chapter 9, beg pardon. So from verse 1 to 3, in the 1st year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. In the 1st year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. In other words, the punishment that came upon Israel, Jerusalem was destroyed, including the temple, I believe, and they were then sent to Babylon. And in verse 3, it says, and I set my face unto the Lord God to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And so one of the key things that happened here, please don't fall. Okay, it's going to fall. The key components here is that Daniel recognized through reading the sacred scriptures and reading the writings of the prophets, which were deemed important at its time. And he could see that from recent prophecies that Jeremiah was saying that Israel would be held into captivity for about 70 years. And Daniel could see quite clearly that nothing seems to be changing. Nothing is changing fast. And so he went about, sought the Lord, prayed, fasted, and took upon the priestly role, as all Christians should. And he obviously is being Jewish, but he took on a priestly role in interceding on behalf of the nation. As we read then the story, it's revealed that Michael, I believe, was fighting the prince of Persia and was withheld for 21 days in getting to Daniel. So here we see this incredible picture of the spiritual warfare that was going on, but simply just one man that we know of. There was probably others at the time, but Daniel's prayer and intercession literally changed and transformed Israel's future. And I believe that there is a narrative in here which we need to pay attention to for us as Christians today. There are many prophetic voices around this nation. I know some people say I'm a prophetic voice. I mean, I'm just a leaf blower in a tornado. There are much better voices than my own out there that you need to listen to. People such as Veronica West, Emma Stark, Phil Sanderson, Adele Richards, Simon Breaker, Louise Reed, David Noakes, Clifford Hill. These are important prophetic voices. I would say that many of the intercessors, if you're out there, please get in contact with those people. Don't get in contact with me. I can't even run a bath, let alone some kind of prayer or intercession thing. I just don't have the my day job, which I just can't do anything. But although myself, I'm going to be changing my ministry a little bit. I'm going to be spending more and more time in the prayer room, praying and interceding for this nation. As basically from today, I'm not going to do any more conferences for a while now. All those that I've said that I'll honor those dates, but I'm not doing any more conferences or anything anymore. I want to spend now time in the prayer room. Well, you need to be listening to these voices here: Veronica West, Emma Stark, Phil Sanderson, Adele Richards, Simon Breaker, Louise Reed, David Noakes, Clifford Hill. They're the prophets you need to be listening to, and you need to be contacting them saying, we need to have some way where you can be given us direct information, prophetic keys and prophetic information, so how we can intercede for our nation with laser precise precision. Other key important voices that we need to be listening to during these days. Again, don't listen to me because I'm just like a leaf blower in a tornado, but listen to people like Dominic Muir, Matt Timms, Reverend Brett Murphy, Calvin Robinson, Bishop C. Dwyer, he's from Wales, Father Phil Harris, Ricky Doolan. These are strong Christian voices speaking out against the lies in our culture and preaching the Bible and truth. In fact, I think pretty much most of those names, that second list I gave you there, probably about 2/3 of those names have all come under the hammer by certain quangos that have tried to hold these people to account for speaking truth, and they're not even hurty words, they're just speaking truth, and they have come under fire. So you need to pray for those guys, but you also need to be listening to them, because brothers and sisters, there is a revolution that's going on in our nation right now. Now, I'm not talking about that. Well, there is a revolution because obviously I'm giving a political and a spiritual narrative here. So please don't think I'm saying what I'm not saying. I'm not saying, hey, fever the revolution, let's call to a revolt. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there is a revolution going on in our nation right now. It's a truth revolution. It's a revolution where people are waking up that the fact that there is a lot of Marxism style government that's now in place, with police knocking on your door if you say hurty words on X or on Facebook, that you can now be put into prison and be given more jail time than a pedophile. This is the state of the nation which you're living in now. You are living in a post freedom of speech era. Britain has fallen. Britain no longer has freedom of speech. Britain has fallen in ways that are quite shocking, and ways that I never ever thought that I would ever see in this nation. And so there is a revolution going on where there are people that are passionate for this nation, people who don't know Christ, and the church is waking up. Parts of it are waking up as well, that there is something seriously wrong with this nation. And if there's ever a time that we need to pray and that we need to intercede for this nation, it has to be now. I'm reminded of the likes of Rees Howells during the Second World War. It was people like that I believe that really turned the tide for us Second World War. And brothers and sisters, we need to be on our knees and we need to be interceding. We need to listen to those prophetic voices. I'll read their names again because they are important. Veronica West, Emma Stark, Phil Anderson, Adele Richards, Simon Breaker, Louise Reed, David Hill. Listen to those guys. They are the prophets of Britain. Listen to what they have to say, but not just listen to what they have to say. Contact them and say, hey, could you do some kind of newsletter for us where you guys and the intercessors could come together so we can pray into what's going on in our nation with laser precise precision and hit what needs to be hit, so that we can bring down empires, so that we can bring about change of government, so that we can bring, not through force or anything like that, but just through prayer, that we can bring and expose the truth and the rot that's been going on in our nation with the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, and bring it to full disclosure, that this nation would see just how far down the rabbit hole we have really gone, and just how satanic and demonic that this nation has become. We need to be praying, and we need to pester these prophets and say, give us a newsletter that we can have maybe once a month, or where you say, you need to pray about these key areas over the next few weeks. And then we can come into agreement with those voices, and we can pray with laser precise precision. God's will be done. Daniel prayed when he looked at the writings of the prophets, and he could see the current affairs, that things were not changing according to the voice of the prophet. Did that mean then that Jeremiah was a false prophet because it wasn't coming to pass? Absolutely not. No, it meant he took his responsibility. Like, this is God's will, plan, and agenda, but I have a part to play in this. That means I need to humble myself, turn from my wicked ways. I need to be praying and fasting and interceding so that God will hear in heaven, and that he will heal our land and bring about national revival. These are the things that I personally believe that we need to be doing in our day. We need to be praying. As I said, I'm going to, although I'll still carry the show and still put out my sermons, I'm going to kind of like move away more into the prayer room for a season, because I just think, man, we need to be praying, and we need to be praying hard. So I'm not going to do any more conferences or anything like that, because I know a lot of people, I don't even want to do that anymore, because it's got to spend more time in prayer for this nation. I think it's important. I think anyone watching this, you have an obligation to pray for your nation. If this episode of UK in Focus does not move you in any way, with respect, there is something wrong with you, because what's happening in our nation is absolutely abhorrent. We're 3 steps in now out of 10 steps to tyranny. Our government is becoming tyrannical. This nation, our legal system, has become two-tier and tyrannical, and it's only going to get worse. And so we need to do things practically. We need to be voting in the ballot box. We need to make sure that politicians know we're not happy with your betrayal of the British people, because Christians, this is not righteousness. As Christians, this is not good. This is not, you have overstepped your boundaries as someone that's been placed in a position of authority by God, as it teaches in Romans 13. If you have come out from that, and you're now basically completely not listening to the voice of the people anymore, and you're just doing your own thing, you are moving into the realms of dictatorship and tyranny. Church, we need to be praying. We need to be praying. And we need to listen to those prophetic voices. Remember, these guys, these are famous people. I'm just like a leaf blower in a tornado. You need to listen to these guys: Veronica West, Emma Stark, Phil Sanderson, Adele Richards, Simon Breaker, Louise Reed, David Noakes, Clifford Hill. These are the prophetic voices of Britain, and we need to be listening to them. And as Daniel grabbed hold of Jeremiah, the prophet, and read it, he took the writings and the understanding of the prophets at the time, and he did something about it. Now, I'm not equating Jeremiah and the voice of maybe Veronica West and Emma Stark as of equal authority, but I'm saying, because obviously it isn't, because the word of God is of unparalleled authority. All I'm saying is that the prophetic voice helps us into how we ought to pray. And as Daniel had that prophetic voice, he could pray effectively. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I don't agree with prophecy. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's biblical. Well, you've got a problem with that, because in the book of Acts, Agabus got up and said on several occasions, he predicted that there was going to be a famine. And that came to pass, and various other things that they came to pass. He is an example of a New Testament prophet. But Chris, all that passed away with the death of the apostles. Okay, Mr. Sola Scriptura, where is that in the scriptures? Chris, that's in 1 Corinthians 13. That says, that prophecy shall pass away and tongue shall pass away. Yeah, it also says in that passage that knowledge shall pass away. But it also says in the book of, I think it's Daniel, that in the end of times, knowledge will increase. So what is it? Has knowledge passed away, or is knowledge increasing? Well, Chris, it looks very obvious to me that knowledge is increasing in the end of days, thanks to AI and technology and everything else that we've got. Exactly. So your understanding of 1 Corinthians 13, the cessationist, is incorrect, because the context of 1 Corinthians 13 is the return of Christ, that when he has come back, there will be no need for knowledge. There will be no need for tongues and prophecy, for we shall all have the mind of Christ. That is the context of that. So if anyone tries to use that verse as some kind of weapon to basically say prophecy and tongues and all that kind of stuff are now gone. It's just cessationist jazz, basically just random noises in the wind to make you not believe what actually scriptures say. And God is still speaking today, and we need to be listening to the voice of prophets. Veronica West, Emma Stark, Phil Sanderson, Adele Richards, Simon Breaker, Louise Reed, David Noakes, Clifford Hill. And we need to take their writings seriously and go, what is God saying at this time? And how can we pray into the things of this nation at this time? And as I said on last week's show, there needs to be a national day of prayer. One of the things that kind of annoys me a little bit about these national day of prayers is it's all about that particular organization or that particular speaker, which just turns me off. It's like, if we're doing a national day of prayer, then we want the Protestants, we want the Catholics, we want the Orthodox, we want all of Christianity to pray. Oh, did you say multi-faith? No, I didn't say anything about praying with other faiths. I'm talking about Christians, the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, all the Protestant denominations, all 45,000 of them, that we get together and we pray together for our nation. Please, if we could organize something like that, it would be great. Remember, I can't even run a bath. There's no way I could run anything like that. I just have the administrative skills of a patio slab. Okay, you don't want me involved in that. But we need to get some people that will head up where we can have all of Christianity praying, where there's no big names at the top to sell the ticket. It's just that we get, because that just turns people off. Or any one particular denomination, like, hey, we're such an amazing Pentecostal church, come follow us, we're going to have a national day of prayer. It turns people off. We need a genuine national day of prayer that is cross-denominational, not just with the Protestants. I know there's 45,000 different denominations of us, but we need to be all-encompassing there with the Anglo-Catholics and the Orthodox Church. We have to come together and we have to pray for our nation. Why do we have to do it together, Chris? Because when brothers dwell together in unity, there God commands a blessing. Please do not send me any hate mail. Please not put texts on here about, oh, how the Catholics follow a false Jesus. I haven't got time for it. I haven't got time to reply to you, because a lot of what people say is just based on misinformation and spin and nonsense that's been churned out for the last 500 years. I've done a lot of research into this, and a lot of things that I thought that Catholics believed just turned out to be a lot of anti-Catholic bias from a Protestant mindset. Anyway, that aside, I do believe if there's ever a time that we need to be praying for our nation, we have to be doing it now. And that is really the clarion call of today's show. We need to be praying. We need to be interceding for our nation. We need to be on our knees, and we need to be doing it ourselves in the prayer room, corporately in the prayer room. We need to be, as a nation, praying, because if we don't, Britain will fall. Anyway, until next time, God bless you, and thank you very much for tuning in. That's it for me, Chris Wickland. Goodbye.